When people think of the world's biggest cruise ships, names like Icon of the Seas and Oasis of the Seas usually come to mind. But while those ships grab most of the headlines, MSC Cruises has quietly built one of the most impressive fleets in the industry. Today, its largest ships can carry nearly 7,000 guests and feature everything from massive water parks and entire entertainment districts to robot rides, luxury yacht club suites, and enough restaurants that you could eat somewhere different every night of your cruise. But here's what's interesting. At the opposite end of the fleet, MSC still operates much smaller ships that many experienced cruisers actually prefer, mainly because they visit ports the megaships simply can't. So that raises an important question. Does bigger really mean better? According to many seasoned MSC passengers, not always. Some of the cruise line's largest ships earn rave reviews for their incredible entertainment and endless onboard activities. But several of its older, smaller ships continue to attract loyal fans thanks to their relaxed atmosphere, easier layouts, and unique itineraries. So in this video, we're ranking every MSC cruise ship class from largest to smallest, while also looking at what real passengers love, and sometimes don't love, about sailing on each one. By the end, you'll know which ships are best for families, which are ideal for first-time cruisers, and whether the biggest ship in the fleet is actually the best choice for your next vacation. Let's get started. Taking the top spot is MSC World America. Not only is it the largest ship MSC Cruises has ever built, it's also the cruise line's newest flagship, designed specifically for the North American market. In terms of gross tonnage, it sits at the very top of the fleet. But what really sets World America apart isn't just its size, it's how that space is used. Instead of feeling like one giant floating hotel, the ship is divided into several distinct neighborhoods, each designed with a different type of traveler in mind. Families have dedicated entertainment zones packed with activities. Adults can escape to quieter spaces designed for relaxation. Luxury travelers have access to the exclusive MSC Yacht Club, offering private lounges, restaurants, and a more upscale experience. And then there's the outdoor promenade, which has quickly become one of the ship's biggest highlights. During the day, it's a great place to enjoy the ocean views, but at night, it comes alive with live music, restaurants, bars, and a lively atmosphere that many passengers describe as one of the best gathering spots on the ship. Another feature that's been getting plenty of attention is the harbor, a brand new outdoor family area filled with climbing attractions, splash zones, and play spaces built specifically for active kids. It's one of several additions MSC introduced to make World America feel more tailored to North American travelers than its European sister ship. And based on passenger reviews, that strategy seems to be paying off. Many guests say the ship feels brighter, more modern, and much easier to navigate than some older MSC ships. Wider walkways and a smarter layout make it surprisingly easy to get around, despite its enormous size. Of course, there is one downside that's impossible to ignore. When you're sharing a ship with nearly 7,000 other guests, you're never going to feel like you're on a small cruise. Popular attractions can get crowded on sea days. Elevators often require a little patience, and if you're planning to see one of the headline theater shows, arriving early is definitely a good idea because seats fill up fast. The good news is that many cruisers say the ship handles those crowds better than they expected. The venues are larger, the public spaces feel more open, and because guests naturally spread out across so many attractions, the ship rarely feels as congested as the passenger count might suggest. If you're looking for MSC's newest technology, the widest selection of dining, and one of the most feature-packed cruise ships the company has ever built, World America currently stands at the top of the list. Coming in second is MSC World Europa. At first glance, you might think it's basically the same ship as World America. After all, they're both part of MSC's World Class. They're nearly identical in size, and they carry almost the same number of passengers. In fact, World Europa is actually a few feet longer, even though World America edges it out in overall gross tonnage. But ask people who've sailed on both, and they'll tell you the experience feels surprisingly different. That's because World Europa was designed primarily for the European market. As a result, the atmosphere on board is much more international. On any given sailing, you'll find passengers from dozens of different countries, creating an environment that feels distinctly European. For many cruisers, that's actually one of the ship's biggest strengths. The mix of cultures, languages, and dining preferences gives the voyage a unique character that's very different from what you'll typically find on a North American cruise. Of course, if you're sailing with MSC for the first time, especially from the US or Canada, it can take a little getting used to. One feature almost everyone agrees on, though, is the Venom Drop. One of the longest dry slides at sea, it's become one of the ship's signature attractions. Pair that with the massive indoor promenade and one of the largest water parks in MSC's fleet, and it's easy to see why many guests say World Europa was built to impress. Passengers also rave about the ship's design. Rather than copying the look of a traditional cruise ship, World Europa feels sleek, futuristic, and more like a luxury resort from the future than a floating hotel. From the sweeping architecture to the modern public spaces, everything feels intentionally designed to make a statement. For travelers who appreciate contemporary design, it's often considered one of the most beautiful ships MSC has ever built. Next up is MSC Euribia, the newest member of the Meraviglia Plus class. On paper, it's noticeably smaller than the world-class ships, but once you're on board, many guests say the difference isn't nearly as obvious as the numbers suggest. With room for more than 6,000 passengers, Euribia still feels every bit like a modern megaship. Its most recognizable feature is the spectacular LED ceiling stretching across the indoor promenade. Throughout the day, the ceiling transforms into colorful digital displays, completely changing the atmosphere from morning to night. For many passengers, simply walking through this area becomes an attraction in itself. But Euribia isn't just about eye-catching design, it's also one of MSC's most environmentally advanced ships. The cruise line equipped it with newer technologies designed to improve fuel efficiency and reduce emissions, making it an important step toward a more sustainable future. And that's something many environmentally conscious travelers appreciate. What really stands out in passenger reviews, however, is the balance Euribia manages to strike. It delivers much of the excitement, entertainment, and modern design of the newest megaships while feeling just a little less overwhelming than World America or World Europa. For many cruisers, that's exactly the sweet spot. Taking the fourth spot is MSC Virtuosa, another member of the Meraviglia Plus class and one of MSC's most popular ships in Europe. Although she's almost identical to Euribia in size, the onboard atmosphere feels noticeably different. If Euribia has a polished, relaxed vibe, Virtuosa feels more energetic. Its indoor galleria is lined with restaurants, cafes, boutiques, and entertainment venues that stay lively well into the evening, creating an atmosphere many guests compare to a bustling European city street. There's almost always something happening. Whether it's live music, street-style performances, or people simply enjoying the nightlife, the ship has a constant sense of energy that appeals to travelers who like staying busy. Entertainment is another area where Virtuosa consistently earns high marks. From theater productions to live bands and performances throughout the ship, many passengers say there's never a shortage of things to do after dinner. If you're the kind of cruiser who wants to fill every hour of the day with activities, Virtuosa remains one of MSC's strongest all-around choices. Rounding out the top 5 is MSC Grandiosa, the very first ship in the Meraviglia Plus class. When she debuted, Grandiosa represented a major step forward for MSC Cruises. She introduced larger public spaces, expanded entertainment, more dining options, and improved family facilities, setting the stage for many of the ships that followed. Since then, newer vessels have grabbed most of the attention, but Grandiosa has quietly remained one of the cruise line's most consistently well-reviewed ships. Many repeat MSC guests say she still delivers nearly everything they love about the newest ships, just without feeling quite as massive. That slightly smaller scale makes a difference. Getting around feels easier, the layout is intuitive, and while you'll still find plenty of entertainment and dining choices, the ship often feels a little less hectic than MSC's newest flagships. For travelers who want a modern megaship without jumping all the way to the enormous world-class vessels, Grandiosa continues to hit a very comfortable middle ground. Taking the sixth spot is MSC Bellissima, one of the standout ships in the original Meraviglia class. At first glance, Bellissima looks a lot like Grandiosa, and that's no coincidence. The two ships share many of the same design features. Bellissima is just slightly smaller and carries fewer passengers, although most guests say you'd hardly notice the difference once you're on board. You'll still find the signature indoor promenade with its stunning LED ceiling, a wide variety of restaurants, and plenty of entertainment throughout the day and into the evening. But because the ship carries fewer guests, many cruisers feel it offers a slightly more relaxed atmosphere. That's something repeat MSC passengers mention again and again. Bellissima manages to deliver the excitement of a modern megaship without constantly feeling overwhelming. Guests also speak highly of the ship's elegant interiors and specialty restaurants, while the evening atmosphere consistently earns praise for being lively without feeling chaotic. Another feature that continues to impress is the MSC Yacht Club. Many repeat cruisers consider it one of the best ways to experience a large ship. You get private lounges, exclusive dining, dedicated pool areas, and personalized service, all while still having access to everything happening throughout the rest of the ship. Of course, no ship is perfect. One complaint that occasionally comes up is that the main pool areas can become crowded on sea days, especially during warm weather itineraries. Then again, that's hardly unique to Bellissima. It's simply one of the trade-offs that comes with sailing on today's megaships. Next is the ship that started it all, MSC Meraviglia. When she debuted in 2017, she wasn't just MSC's newest ship, she was one of the largest cruise ships in the entire world. At the time, many industry observers saw her as MSC's answer to Royal Caribbean's biggest vessels. Today, several newer ships have overtaken her in size, but Meraviglia remains one of the most popular ships in the fleet, and for good reason. North American travelers in particular know her well because she regularly sails from New York, making her one of the easiest MSC ships to experience without flying to Florida. Many passengers say Meraviglia strikes an excellent balance. She's large enough to offer Broadway-style productions, specialty dining, water slides, and impressive public spaces, yet still small enough that getting around never feels like a workout. In fact, several cruisers who have sailed on both Meraviglia and the newer world-class ships say Meraviglia's layout feels more intuitive and easier to navigate. One feature that continues to steal the spotlight is the breathtaking LED ceiling stretching across the indoor promenade. Even years after her launch, many guests still consider it one of the most beautiful public spaces MSC has ever created. Sometimes, the first version really does get it right. Now we move into one of the most distinctive ship designs in the entire MSC fleet, MSC Seascape. Unlike the world-class and Meraviglia ships, Seascape was designed with one clear goal: to bring passengers closer to the ocean. Instead of focusing primarily on indoor entertainment districts, the ship features expansive waterfront promenades, glass walkways, infinity-style viewpoints, and open-air spaces that constantly remind you you're sailing at sea, not staying in a floating resort. And that's exactly why so many experienced cruisers love it. One comment that appears again and again in passenger reviews is that Seascape simply feels more connected to the water. Whether you're walking along the outdoor promenade, relaxing at one of the infinity viewpoints, or enjoying dinner with panoramic ocean views, the sea becomes part of the experience rather than just something outside your cabin window. Of course, Seascape has its share of headline attractions too. The biggest is Robotron, a one-of-a-kind robotic arm ride that lifts and spins passengers high above the upper deck while overlooking the ocean. For thrill seekers, it's unforgettable. For anyone afraid of heights, maybe not so much. Families also appreciate the ship's multiple pool areas and outdoor water attractions, which help spread guests across the upper decks. As a result, many cruisers say the outdoor spaces rarely feel as crowded as they expected for a ship of this size. Right behind Seascape is her sister ship, MSC Seashore. On paper, these two ships are almost twins. They belong to the same Seaside Evo class, have nearly identical dimensions, and share many of the same restaurants, lounges, and entertainment venues. But people who've sailed on both often notice subtle differences. Because Seashore entered service first, many passengers see her as the ship that perfected the original Seaside concept before Seascape introduced a few refinements. Like her sister ship, Seashore receives consistently high marks for her outdoor spaces, and that's especially true on Caribbean itineraries, where warm weather encourages guests to spend much of the day outside. In fact, some experienced MSC cruisers say they actually prefer Seashore over some of the cruise line's larger flagships. Why? Because the ship never lets you forget you're at sea. That brings us to an interesting trend you'll hear again and again throughout the cruise community. Bigger isn't always better. While the world-class ships impress with their size and endless attractions, the Seaside family has built its reputation in a completely different way. These ships were intentionally designed to blur the line between ship and sea. You'll find more outdoor seating, more glass, more waterfront walkways, and more places where you can simply sit back and watch the horizon. For many cruisers, that's what a cruise vacation is really about. If your favorite part of cruising is spending time outdoors and staying connected to the ocean, the Seaside class consistently ranks among MSC's most loved designs, even if it isn't the largest. Next up is MSC Seaview, one of the original ships in the Seaside class. Although she's slightly smaller than the newer EVO ships, Seaview still feels remarkably spacious thanks to her innovative design. Like the rest of the Seaside family, everything about the ship was built around maximizing ocean views. One of her signature attractions is the long zip line that stretches across the upper decks. It's become a favorite for guests looking to add a little adrenaline to their cruise. But you don't have to be a thrill seeker to appreciate what Seaview has to offer. Passengers regularly praise the ship's outdoor restaurants, wide walking promenades, and abundance of places to simply relax by the water. In fact, many reviewers say that strolling around the exterior decks quickly became one of their favorite parts of the cruise. For travelers who would rather spend time outdoors than inside casinos or shopping areas, Seaview continues to be one of MSC's strongest options. Rounding out the Seaside class is the ship that started it all, MSC Seaside. When she debuted, Seaside wasn't just another new cruise ship. She introduced a completely different design philosophy for MSC. Instead of focusing almost entirely on indoor spaces, the ship was built to blur the line between the ship and the sea, giving passengers more opportunities to enjoy the ocean throughout their vacation. At the time, she ranked among the largest cruise ships in the world and immediately stood out for her bold, unconventional architecture. Today, she's no longer one of the biggest ships in the fleet, but many cruisers would argue she's aged remarkably well. In fact, experienced MSC passengers often recommend Seaside to travelers who want many of the features found on today's megaships without quite as many people on board. It's a reminder that the newest ship isn't always the best fit. Sometimes, the best cruise is simply the one that matches your travel style. Now we arrive at a class of ships that many longtime MSC fans still speak about with genuine affection, the Fantasia class. This group includes MSC Preziosa, MSC Divina, MSC Splendida, and MSC Fantasia. When these ships entered service between 2008 and 2013, they represented a major turning point for MSC Cruises. They introduced larger public spaces, expanded entertainment, and, perhaps most importantly, the very first MSC Yacht Club. That exclusive ship-within-a-ship concept has since become one of MSC's signature features. Compared with today's world-class giants, the Fantasia ships are noticeably smaller, but for many repeat cruisers, that's actually part of their appeal. Instead of spending what feels like half your vacation walking from one end of the ship to the other, everything is comfortably within reach. Restaurants, lounges, theaters, pools, they're all just a short walk away. Several longtime MSC guests say these ships strike a sweet balance between offering plenty to do while still feeling easy to navigate. Among the four ships, MSC Preziosa often receives praise for combining many of the amenities found on newer ships with a noticeably more relaxed atmosphere. MSC Divina has also built a particularly loyal following, especially among North American cruisers after spending several successful seasons in the Caribbean. Guests frequently describe her as elegant, spacious, and surprisingly modern despite being more than a decade old. Then there's MSC Fantasia herself. While she may not receive as much attention today, she holds a special place in MSC history as the ship that introduced the Yacht Club concept, an innovation that helped redefine premium cruising within the fleet. Of course, these ships do show their age in a few areas. The cabins have a more traditional design, technology isn't as advanced, and you won't find giant LED promenades, robotic attractions, or sprawling entertainment districts. But for many travelers, that's exactly the point. The Fantasia class focuses less on flashy attractions and more on delivering a comfortable, elegant cruise experience. And judging by the number of repeat guests these ships continue to attract, that formula still works remarkably well. Next comes the Musica class, made up of MSC Magnifica, MSC Poesia, MSC Orchestra, and MSC Musica. These ships were built before cruising entered today's era of ever larger megaships. And honestly, you notice the difference almost immediately. The atmosphere is quieter, the pace is slower, and the overall experience feels much more relaxed. Rather than racing from one attraction to the next, the focus shifts toward enjoying the cruise itself. Spend the afternoon by the pool, listen to live music before dinner, take in the ocean views with a drink in hand, watch the sunset from the promenade. It's a style of cruising that many longtime passengers still prefer. In fact, several experienced MSC cruisers describe the Musica class as feeling more classic. That doesn't mean outdated, it simply means the ship isn't trying to entertain you every minute of the day. Instead, the voyage itself becomes the attraction. Because these ships carry significantly fewer passengers than MSC's newest vessels, everyday experiences tend to feel much less hectic. Embarkation is often smoother, finding a quiet table isn't as difficult. Getting around the ship takes less time, and it's much easier to find a peaceful corner where you can read a book or simply enjoy the view. Of course, travelers expecting giant water parks, zip lines, and non-stop thrill attractions may find the Musica class a little too quiet, but for couples, mature travelers, and anyone looking for a slower pace, these ships continue to receive consistently positive reviews. Sometimes, less really is more. Finally, we've reached the smallest ships currently sailing for MSC Cruises, the Lirica Class. This class includes MSC Opera, MSC Lirica, MSC Sinfonia, and MSC Armonia. Compared with World America, these ships carry less than half as many passengers, making them a completely different cruising experience. They also represent some of the earliest chapters in MSC's modern history. At first glance, that smaller size might sound like a disadvantage, but many experienced cruisers would tell you it's actually one of the class's biggest strengths. Because these ships are more compact, they can visit ports that simply aren't practical for today's megaships. Life on board also feels refreshingly simple. You spend less time waiting for elevators, less time navigating long corridors, and far less time searching for an available lounge chair by the pool. There's another benefit many guests don't expect. Smaller ships naturally create a stronger sense of community. By the second or third day, it's common to recognize familiar faces around the ship. You start seeing the same crew members, the same fellow passengers, and the entire experience begins to feel much more personal. Of course, there are trade-offs. Entertainment is more limited, dining choices are fewer, cabins tend to be smaller, and you won't find the spectacular attractions that define MSC's newest generation of ships. But if your priority is exploring incredible destinations rather than spending every hour on board, the Lirica class continues to be an excellent choice. Sometimes, the destination really is the star of the vacation. So after looking at every class in MSC's fleet, one thing becomes clear. The biggest ship isn't automatically the best ship. Every class offers a completely different kind of cruise experience, and the right ship depends far more on your travel style than on its size. If you're after the newest technology, the widest selection of restaurants, and enough attractions to keep everyone in the family entertained, it's hard to beat the world-class ships. They're designed to feel like floating resorts, packed with everything from thrilling attractions to multiple entertainment districts. But if you're looking for something that strikes a balance between excitement and comfort, many experienced cruisers point to the Meraviglia class as the sweet spot. These ships still offer plenty of dining, entertainment, and family-friendly activities, but they don't feel quite as overwhelming as MSC's newest giants. Love spending time outdoors? Then the Seaside class might be the perfect fit. More than any other ships in MSC's fleet, they were designed to keep you connected to the ocean, with expansive waterfront promenades, outdoor lounges, and panoramic views around almost every corner. If your idea of the perfect vacation is slowing down, enjoying elegant public spaces, and escaping the crowds, the Fantasia and Musica classes continue to earn loyal fans year after year. They may not have robot rides or massive water parks, but for many cruisers, they offer something even more valuable, a more relaxed and traditional cruising experience. And if your vacation is all about exploring incredible destinations rather than spending every waking hour on board, don't overlook the Lirica class. These smaller ships can reach ports that many of today's megaships simply can't, and they offer a quieter, more intimate atmosphere that's becoming increasingly rare in modern cruising. So before you book your next MSC cruise, don't just ask yourself, what's the biggest ship? Ask yourself, which ship fits the kind of vacation I actually want? Because in the end, the best MSC ship isn't necessarily the newest or the biggest. It's the one that gives you the experience you're looking for. And that's one of the biggest strengths of MSC Cruises. Whether you're looking for a floating mega resort packed with attractions or a smaller, destination-focused ship with a more relaxed pace, there's a ship in the fleet that's likely to match your travel style. And speaking of the future, MSC's fleet isn't done growing. The next chapter is already on the horizon. Before you book your next cruise, make sure you watch our next video. Should I book MSC World America now, or wait for MSC World Atlantic? We'll compare everything we know so far about MSC's upcoming world-class ship, take a closer look at the rumored upgrades, and discuss whether it could become the most impressive vessel MSC has ever built. If you're thinking about sailing with MSC in the next few years, you won't want to miss it. Just click on the video that's on your screen now. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy cruising!